Are you at home in Ojai today? Is that where you live?
I am, yes.
When I first heard of you, I can't believe I read that you've been doing this for 30 years,
Yeah.
and it all seems so fresh. And I remember learning about you for the first time while I was on vacation in Santa Barbara. So all I
Oh
can
my
really do is
goodness.
look uphill to see you or wave at you anyway.
Yeah, well, never too late.
Um, I won't talk very much because we might talk about things that we'd like to share with an audience. But do I call you Byron Katie when I address you? Is
Uh,
that
you can, or you can just call me Byron, or just call me Katie. I leave it. I leave it to you. What
okay?
feels, yeah.
Well, I'll probably call you Byron then.
Okay. My given name is Byron Kathleen. So,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
I won't call you Byron Kathleen. That sounds like I'm scolding you. Get in here and do the dishes or something like that. Yeah. Good. Well, I'm so happy that you're with us today. My podcast has only been going since the Feast of St. Francis, October the 4th of last year.
Oh
And
my.
I have this assistant Chantel who's listening to this. By the way, all of this is recorded, and if there's anything that you said that you don't that wish you hadn't when we're done, all we have to do is edit it out. The same thing with any stammers or anything like that. It can all be cleaned up a little bit. Although I
Great.
found that that doesn't really happen that much. Most people just
No.
have a naturalness about what they say.
Yeah, hopefully so.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So I think we're ready to go, are we? Do you have any questions for me before we get started?
No, I'm just very excited. On, on, as, yeah, I'm just very excited to spend time with you.
Well, thank you.
Hmm.
We can then get started. This will go for about an hour, maybe a little less, depending on how
Okay.
what we think of it. And uh, um, I'm just happy to introduce you to an audience that might not have found you yet, although, over the years, you've certainly you certainly found your way into the hearts of lots of people, but maybe there'll be some new ones today.
Oh, that's a beautiful, I hope so too.
Okay. Well, then let me get started. All right, Chantel, here we go. Three, two, one. The Joyful Friar Podcast is made possible by the generous support of our friends. To support the podcast, please visit nathan-castle.com and donate today. Hi, and welcome to this episode of the Joyful Friar Podcast. I'm Father Nathan, your host. And today, wow, we get to be with Byron Katie, who told me I can call her either Byron or Katie or Byron Kathleen. I told her it would sound like I'm scolding her if I called her Byron Kathleen. Get in here and do the dishes. But I'm happy to be with somebody that I've thought of as I don't know if I would have say I thought of you as a friend. That would be a stretch, but somebody I've admired and whose work that I've employed in my own life. She has a series of cards that I keep on my nightstand
Oh,
and have for years. And I'm going to, during the interview today, I'm going to pick a few of my favorite ones and have you comment upon them because most of them are only a sentence long. I suppose they do speak for themselves, but since I have you here, why wouldn't I ask you to elaborate a little bit?
yeah, yeah. I love to on yeah, so I can understand myself as I'm talking. Once again.
Well, I'm going to read a little bit of bio that will help orient people to you. In 1986, at the bottom of a 10-year spiral into depression and self-loathing, Byron Katie woke up one morning in a state of joy.
And that was self-loathing, not self-loving. And yes, 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 by
It's
some
been a
grace.
long while since I read Loving What Is, but didn't it involve a cockroach?
It did. It did.
We'll get to that in a little bit. Let me finish your bio.
Okay.
She realized that when she believed her stressful thoughts, she suffered, but that when she questioned them, she didn't suffer, and that this is true for every human being. Her simple yet powerful process of self-inquiry, which she calls the work,
Mhm.
consists of 4 questions and the turnaround, which is a way of experiencing the opposite of what you believe. The rest of it pertains to your publications and website, and we'll add that
Mhm.
at the back end of the program in the show notes and all. But anyway, again, welcome.
Thank you.
So
Thank
you
you.
had an epiphany that involved a cockroach. I don't know of anybody else that I know that does that. Could you tell us about that?
Well, one morning as I lay just fast asleep on the floor, I was so full of self-loathing, I didn't even think I deserved a bed. So I slept on the floor. That was where I slept. And one morning, as I lay fast asleep, a cockroach crawled over my foot, and I saw in that moment the ego did not have space to jump in and fill that space before I could see, without the ego, how my world how I was born into the world. And I saw some light coming through the window, but the ego could not name it window or light. So I can only share this with you out of that moment and situation as I experienced it. So there was no identity. There was no I to see the window it was just this, if I were to describe it, Father Nathan, it was like, it was amazing. How can you put words to what would have no words? Anyway, I saw that the moment that my ego, the moment what the window and the light, what that was, like window, well, it was light, window. So you can see how my world began. There was nothing but awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was object, we'll say light, coming through the window. And the ego named it. It gave it names. And then I began to laugh. It was like the first sound that came out of that birth was laughter. And it was like, oh my. I mean, it was heaven. I witnessed the beginning of how the world was born, how my world was born. And then it was, before there was even an I, it was the way I used to, before I had language for this, I could only refer to this body as me. I can only refer to it as it. So it stood up. The laughter, and then it stood up. It walked, it just began to walk. And I'm hearing how strange this must sound to some ears, and it walked into what I later could see was a bathroom. It turned for no reason, faced a mirror over the sink, and looked into its eyes. I don't know how relevant this is, but it looked into its eyes, and something happened. And as I'm sharing this with you, Father Nathan, it was as though identity was born, even though there was no my eyes, none of it. Something happened. It was emerging, and I fell in love. It was not personal with whatever was in the mirror. I saw it.
Well, it's
And
not uncommon to take deep spiritual transformative moments and put them into words. And it's as many
mm,
times as you've
mm,
probably been asked to do that, it sounds
oh,
like it still uh, escapes you.
but it does, and words don't do service to it. And I certainly do my best, and that's my job.
Well, I'm remembering your memory, and I'm remembering having read about it maybe 20 years ago. And I loaned your book out and it never came back, which is,
Oh,
I think it's one of the telling things about a good book. Very often
oh,
when you lend them, they give them back to the world, they find their way somewhere else and stay there, or maybe move several times, who knows. But I remember that the story being that you were eyeball to eyeball with a cockroach, and all you could see was beauty and how sleek it was or how well designed it was. Is that true? Or did I make that up?
it's not familiar to me.
All right. Well, maybe I brought that to it. You know how
But
if
I
you've ever
certainly, if that's what it takes, I'm certainly grateful.
well, you've probably seen things through the eyes of a child, maybe walking with a child on the beach and they find a bottle cap, and
Hmm.
it's such a wonderful bottle cap.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
they'll show you the how shiny it is or how colorful it is or something like
Hmm.
that. I think maybe that's what I brought to it myself, that sometimes when you see things as they really are, they're
Hmm.
just beautiful in their own way and they don't need to be anything except what they are.
Yeah, if we see them and we know the difference between any other bottle cap in the world, and we don't compare it with the one we're holding, it's new.
Yes.
And we just refer to that experience of as not living in the past, not mesmerized, hypnotized by the illusion. In other words, I refer to it to false AI. It's that's fictitious. We can't take that out and hold it. We can hold the bottle cap. We can't take that out of our head or out of the air, what we're thinking and believing.
Hmm.
Like if I say banana, we see an image of a banana when I say it, but that's not a banana.
Right.
That's not. So we can see the past and the future as an illusion because it is. Then we can see the bottle cap just like a child and live as a child.
Hmm.
And the language is all in us. It's what we how we experience it as we speak. I can say, oh, I love bananas, and I see the banana, and I see me, oh my goodness, eating a banana and all of that. But I am aware of that is not that is not me. That is false I, artificial intelligence. I'm programmed.
Yeah.
And I programmed me originally the moment I believed.
Hmm.
I saw a tree, and let's say the mind says, oh, what a beautiful tree. But I couldn't recognize that bottle cap, that tree, if I'm not, if these false images are not flooding my head of other bottle caps, other trees, in other words. So I can look at the tree as a way of living, as though this world is always new.
Well, this
And
experience took
like
you.
this child you brought up.
Yes. Yeah. This experience took you in a new direction for the rest of your life that became
Yes.
uh, the work of Byron Katie. Could you describe? You've probably spent the last 30 years describing it, but would you mind doing it one more time for our audience?
Well, it's a tree. Is it true? And was it true before you believed it? like your mother says it's a tree, your father says look at the tree, and your siblings say, oh, what a beautiful tree, oh, let's go sit under the tree. But it doesn't mean anything to me, the child, until the moment I believed it. And it's just like being on the floor, only I was asleep then. I believed it, and then there's an I see the tree. And then it just goes from there. So who brought me into the world? There it is again. I do. This programming. Who programmed me? I did the moment I believed. Did I do it? No, it was a happening. It brings me into this world of grace, this amazing, friendly universe as in living color. There's no time that I speak of it that I'm just, grateful?
Of course you are.
Yeah.
And the way that this has moved in your public life, your public career, has been mostly helping other people get rid of suffering in their life.
Well, by invitation, by invitation, because it's certainly nothing I teach, but it's something, what is the work? It's how to identify the cause of all suffering, how to question it, and basically how to identify the cause of all suffering, how to end it. Mm-hmm. In other words, to wake up to reality. It's not some threatening thing that we're going to go mindlessly into some kind of danger. It's the extreme opposite. Mm-hmm. We're going to wake up and go and find ourselves in something beautiful.
You presented it to the world in terms of 4 simple statements, right?
4 questions.
4 questions, yeah, questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it would be, it's a tree. It's a tree. And I didn't have inquiry when I was a child. I didn't need it, but it's a tree. Is it true? Can I myself, yes, my mother says so, my father says so, my family says so, but can I myself know that it's a tree? No. I have no reference for it as a child, which is I invite everyone to just be a child, open their minds when they sit in these questions. Mm-hmm. Second question is, can I really know that it's a tree? And then to be authentically in oneself, if you really want to know, then the answer is either yes or no. And the only valid one is what you yourself come to an understanding with. And so you can answer honestly, because yes or no, one is not, there's not just one that is right or wrong, other than the one you sit in and meditate in. It's a tree. Can I myself really know? Let's see, and you ponder that. So just trust your yes or no, whatever shows itself to you. This is just you with you, mm-hmm, for your listeners.
Yes.
So, and then the third question, therefore, the third question is, notice how I react, what happens when I think the thought, when I believe the thought, it's a tree. If I get really still in that, I can see the last time I looked at the tree. And then I might see the tree before that. And then I might see myself when we vacationed in a forest or something. I might see, so that's what the ego offers up. You can't touch those trees. It's a state of mind. Mm-hmm. So is that proof it's a tree? Well, beginners will say, in other words, people new to self-inquiry might say, yes, it's a tree. I saw one in the forest with my family last year. I saw a lot of them. So they're using this ego, artificial intelligence, these images as proof. Okay, so yes, it's a tree, and we're just so sure. So that's identified. I am the one saw the tree. So now we have two, I and the tree, and all the witnesses to me seeing the tree, even the trees themselves, we could say. Then the fourth question, okay, it's a tree. Now looking at that tree or that bottle cap, who would I be without the thought it's a tree? It's like saying, who would I be without my tree story? Okay, what story is that? Okay, just get still. So you just drop the images. Who would I be without the thought it's a tree? And what we see is what that innocent child sees in a bottle cap. But here on earth, it still leads me to say, oh, look at the beautiful tree, because earth is heaven. It's a friendly universe, friendly world. And, I refer to it often as Earth School. So it's a tree. Then I invite people to turn around what they're believing, to try on opposites. So it's a tree turned around. It's not a tree. And the ego will say, oh, it's a tree. It's a tree. Yes, it's a tree. You know that. Don't be silly. This is stupid. Get still, just notice, just hear all of that, just hear all of that. And ego offering up trees, that illusion. And it's a tree. Can I myself see turned around? It's not a tree. You can sit in that for a long time.
Well, I have, and I'm going to
Yeah.
give our audience an example of how I've used your work in my own life. It's one thing if it's something benign like a tree. It's another if the thing that you're observing and that your ego tells you is something like, those people hate me.
Yeah.
And then there's pain because I don't want to be hated and it hurts to be hated. And now I'm angry because I have this story in my head that those people hate me. And in your method, in your work, you say, you encourage people to do a process of I think the rhyme is judge your neighbor, write it down, ask 4 questions, turn it around. And so I've used your method a lot. And so what I've done is give myself full permission to be as ugly and rude and cruel, vulgar if I want, in the privacy of my own room, writing down my anger at somebody that I think is hurting me.
And that's what this work is for. That's it.
And then once you've got it on paper, and I usually walk away from the paper and come back to it a second time because having a fresh mind might, I might even think of more things that I'm angry about than I did the other time. Once I've got it all on the page, then I use your method, which is the first question is it true? I'm a member of the Dominican order, and our motto is Veritas, Latin for truth. And for us, truth is, and I'm a follower of Jesus, and one of the things he says is, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And so sometimes when I talk to him, I asked you what I should call you, Byron or Byron Katie. I sometimes just talk to him and say, hey, truth, come over here, sit by me. I need truth right now because I think my thoughts are getting so distorted by my woundedness or my anger or my ego or whatever. I'll say, okay, I wrote all this stuff down using Byron Katie's method. Is it true? And then I love the fact that question 2 is the same as question 1.
It just gives us another shot at it.
Is it really true? Or how do you put it? Can you absolutely know that it's true? Because your ego is going to want to affirm everything that you think.
Absolutely.
It's true because I thought it.
When I first brought it forward, it was 3 questions and turnarounds, but is it true? Can you really know that it's true? all
Yes.
in then the other two. But and I just wanted to give up people opportunity to slow it down the way that you just demonstrated.
Well, you know that you must have had this experience maybe sometime in your life. Did you ever? Maybe it'd be too rude to ask. Let me give a different
Oh,
example.
be rude.
All right, I'll go ahead and be rude. Was there ever a version of you that wanted to go dark on somebody in speech and sought out somebody who you thought would agree with you so you could complain about a third party?
Oh, the ego always needs it always needs an audience that'll agree with it. How else can it survive?
Yes, and
To doubt
sometimes we make the
itself.
wrong judgment. Sometimes we think this is a safe person to gossip with. They're gonna love the nasty things that I say about this third
Yeah,
party that we both
yeah.
know. Uh,
It's so attractive to it's so attractive because it brings us together. We can talk about that other person and we just feel so good together. And there's something about you that you really get me, you really understand me, and we agree with. So there's a lot of romance for the ego of finding people that agree with them. And oh my goodness, when the ego's running rampant, it can get pretty tough, as history will will attest to.
well, and if you've ever said something about someone that isn't true, another word for that is lie. Uh,
Uh-huh.
uh, Lies, if you're any good at lying, you don't make up things that are so preposterous that no one will believe them. You base
It-
them in some observational bit of data, uh,
Believability.
something believable, even if it
Yeah.
is true that that person did this thing that
Uh-huh.
most of us would say is a wrong thing to do. Well, then
Hmm.
that becomes the material with which we can spin all the rest of it. And,
Hmm.
and furthermore, because of that, this, that, and the other. Anyway,
Yeah, well,
I
look at the ambition for so many people to be influencers, and look at their shticks. It's if you weigh it, it's whoo, there's a lot of there's a lot of what you're bringing up right now.
yes, there is. Once in a while in my life, I'm 67 now, and once in a while in my life, I grew up in a Catholic home where I learned religious practice, not just rules and regulations and dietary laws or all of that. I really learned spiritual practice as a little kid.
Mm,
And I know
beautiful.
how to talk to Jesus, and once in a while he talks back. And
Hmm.
been a time or two where I wanted to do that thing and say, would you be with me while we commiserate about that third party? And I've
Did
learned
you
not to
notice
do
the
it.
silence?
No, it's not silent. He pretty much says, "Well, if you knew her the way I do, you know,
Oh, honey. Oh
if you
my
knew him the way
gosh.
I do,
Oh my
or
goodness.
hasn't that happened in your life where somebody stops you cold in the middle of your attempt to draw them into your darkness and say, well, that may be true, except this, that, or the other. If you only knew her the way I do, or did you
Well,
know
I
that
would
she?"
just have to see you in my old life. I just have to see you as obviously someone that just doesn't understand me. And I don't know why you are the way you are. And I'm not, I don't, inside of me, I don't want to carry on this friendship.
Yeah, exactly. You could just walk away, or you can think, well, I'm never going to speak about that to her again.
Yeah.
I'll
Uh-huh.
go to, but anyway, I've just seen him do it. It's happened 2 or 3 times where I just know better than to go to him with my whining about my lady and what she did or didn't do.
Go to him with your wine name when you know the answer before you get there.
Well, I don't, it's not like I catch myself all the time, but
Yeah.
sometimes when I'm getting whiny, my truer self or my better angels or whatever just says, Nathan, you feel whiny. And
Uh, uh,
maybe you need to go for a walk and find a bottle
oh
cap or
my
something.
boy, do you have a friend?
Well, I do. I
Oh my,
do.
that touches me very deeply.
Well, he's the best. Well,
Yeah.
anyway, after those two things, you get to that part where you say, how do you react? What happens when you believe that thought? I've been in in public leadership roles much of my life. I've been a pastor since I was about 32 years old.
Mm,
And when you're in public leadership, you make decisions that displease someone. And sometimes
mhm,
they want to know chapter and verse of a lot of stuff that's none of their business. They can decide to trust you or not trust you, but
Yeah.
sometimes they want to know things you're not free to tell them. And then you've got people angry at you. And boy, as a younger guy, I was so tenderhearted. Some of my friends used to say, "You've got to toughen up, or you're not going to last." And I thought the
Oh.
last thing that the church needs is one more tough priest. I don't want to
Mm.
be tough. I want to be a gentleman. I
No.
just had to figure out how to be a gentleman and not be a collection of, my first book. I don't know if you can see it over my shoulder, but it's about the Wizard of Oz.
Oh, yeah, it looks whimsical and colorful
Yeah,
and
it's called "And Toto 2, The Wizard of Oz as a Spiritual Adventure." And when I was a younger guy, I thought of myself as the Tin Man, this empty. When a man's an empty kettle, he should be on his mettle, and yet I'm torn apart. That's what he sings.
mm,
Uh,
mm.
he thinks he doesn't have a heart, except that he cries all the time, and they have to keep
Oh,
do you remember the story?
yes.
They have to keep the oil can nearby
Yeah.
because he is what he thinks he's not. And in that story, at least for most of it, it's people looking outside of themselves for the thing that they most need, and you're watching it. You can see from the beginning that they have what they need. They just don't know that they have it, and you watch them kind of grow into it over the course of the movie.
Yeah, it's like we have it, but we don't have anything else to compare it to because we have it. And then we look at other people that appear to have it and we wonder why we don't have it when it's like you said, we do have it.
And that the answer is inside, and that's, I think, the genius of the method you call the work. That it's in there, but you're going to have to put a little time in to digging through a little bit of nonsense, or maybe more than a little
Mhm.
bit, to get to the truth of you. And I believe when we do that, I believe that the Holy Spirit is in all of us. That's what I call it, and that the breath of God is in me. And when I sit still, I don't have to just listen to me. I can listen to the one who made me, uh, uh, along with me, and guide me to truth about me. And then I don't have to be so unhappy or disappointed in people, or crabby, which is the behavior that flows from that.
My goodness, you are gifted.
Well, I have you to thank for at least part of that, because your method is so simple to use, and I've used it even reflexively. If I don't sit down and do it exactly the way you have it outlined on your website and in your books and so on, I know the basics by heart, and I can stop myself and say, "You're being too unhappy about this. You're suffering, and there's just this isn't like you. You can be more peaceful, or you can be somehow. You need to sit down and do the work." And very often I have recourse to the way that you've laid it out on your books and website and so on.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. I love that that like you, all of us, if we get still enough, we can find our way back home.
Yeah.
And when we're not home, any opposite of this say the heart, any opposite is going to feel like it's going to feel the way you describe. There's an offness. We need to take a look, come back.
Well, and I love the Oz story so much, and Dorothy means gift of God. That's what the
Oh
name means.
my.
And my name also means that. Dorothy is Greek, and Nathan is Hebrew, but they both mean gift of God, which I believe is what we are. We're all walking around like that image you saw in the mirror when you got up off the floor. Uh, you saw, I don't know if you'd call it gift of God, but you saw beauty
Oh,
or goodness or
I,
something.
I, I, it's it brought me from heaven to heaven lived.
Well,
From the
one of the
nameless to the named.
I have there are 52 cards in the deck that I keep on the nightstand, and one of them that's maybe it's just timely. It struck me as I was going through them today. when they attack you and you notice that you love them with all your heart, your work is done. That's one I'm still working on. My work's not done.
Well, but you certainly do know the difference. You're so in touch with that, and you, in your way, whatever it takes, you bring you home.
Well, again, I'm a follower of Jesus, and I belong to IONS. Are you familiar with IONS, the International Association for Near-Death Studies?
No.
Um, you might enjoy at least browsing their website or whatnot. They're people that have had out-of-body experiences, or especially the classic near-death experience of the person that had some sort of trauma that caused their consciousness to separate from their body for a time, and have sensations and experiences that were out of the body until they re-entered it, often because of CPR or something.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't had one of those, but IONS members also invite people who've had what they call a spiritually transformative experience, which is also a different kind of consciousness that took them out of their ordinary way of being into something extraordinary that made a lasting difference. And the episode that started all this for you is certainly a spiritually transformative experience, according to what IONS would talk about.
Yeah, and I had I saw the way, and it doesn't mean I came back. That's not possible. I appear to have, but no, I've come back to do my job, just like you.
Yeah,
I'm here to do my job.
right. Well, a lot
I'm
of
very,
people,
very clear about that, what that job is, and I sure get that from you.
well, your job, as I understand it, has been to help other people learn a simple methodology about how to move from telling yourself stories that sadden and depress you, and to push back against your own storytelling inside your head, and ask if it's true, and then eventually say, what would my life be if I quit believing that story, or if I
Yeah,
had a different story in my head.
yeah.
And
My life is about the end of suffering.
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you're familiar with the work that I do that involves people that died sudden traumatic deaths. I don't expect that you would, but you're on my show, so maybe you'll
Mhm.
be aware of it if you
It's
wanted
certainly
to.
nothing I don't, it's certainly not something, I certainly relate to it.
Well, the basics of it is about 27 years ago, I began having contact dreams in the night from people who died a sudden and violent death that um, traumatized them. And rather than resting in peace the way that we hope people do when we go to funerals, they found themselves in need of something therapeutic first. They needed to regain a sense of equilibrium or peace, freedom to act,
A way back to the world, a
to
way
yeah, to
to
their
go
own
to be in,
consciousness. And
yes, a way to be in the world that can never be the world, but a way to be in the world that to do their job.
for me, their world changed because they really did die and didn't come back. They died and left their body, and were not able to get back in it. Sometimes they say they were locked out. But then they experience themselves as still me somehow, but not not the way that I was me a little while ago.
Mhm.
Anyway, they go through a process, and when it's like a afterlife clinic where everything works. Nobody gave you a pill and hoped that it would work, uh, or tried some therapeutic technique in hopes that it would work.
Mhm.
Everything works, although you have to cooperate with it. And part of what the people that I deal with do is they have to push against untrue things that they thought about themselves, including stuff that happened in the moment that they died. Imagine somebody making a driving mistake that not only killed them but killed others.
Mm-hmm.
And then in their consciousness after that, they're kicking themselves. If only I had been more careful, I'd still
Mm-hmm.
be alive, and so would these other people. And then
Mm-hmm.
in the afterlife, they can have a dramatic story about that. And
Mm-hmm.
others will have to, coach them into saying, you can continue to think that as long as you please, because it's your story if you want it to be. But we'd like to point out these other possibilities. Could you just recognize that you made a mistake, and that it was not the first mistake you ever made? It just happened to have a lot of consequences. But could you just see that it was a mistake and say, I made a mistake? The truth is, I made a mistake, because I sometimes make mistakes. And then get on with it. Say, okay, I made a mistake that landed me here, and now I'm here. And now I can look at the pretty bottle cap or the tree. I can live in the present moment, because I don't have to look over my shoulder at that previous moment and think all is lost because of what happened in the previous moment. So they're in the work that I do, they're vetted. They only come to me and to my prayer partners when they're ready to move from one level to a next in their afterlife journey. And it really is like graduation day. It's celebratory, because they're about to be much more free to pursue all kind of things that we kind of hope maybe. I have all kind of hopes for the afterlife.
Yeah.
It's all kind of
You
things I want to.
accept people in on that have open minds. I mean,
Yes.
that's
And,
what it boils down to. They're
and
open
and
to,
getting your mind opened when it's been
it's
clouded with
required. It's
trauma
required.
or dramatic stories that sadden and so on, or that blame. Uh,
Yeah. Because
Sometimes
we can be locked into blame, just so locked. And it's just good to know that you're there waiting for a shift, and where you can support them the rest of the way.
my partners and I don't really help do the shifting. They've pretty much done their shifting, and we're the discharge staff. We help them out the door. Do you know that during the pandemic, you must have seen some of those images of somebody that should have died of COVID, and were, in ICU for weeks or months, and survived against all odds, and now they're in a wheelchair with balloons, and they're being, you know they're being shown the door with nurses clapping on both sides and somebody
Yeah.
at the front to welcome them.
Hmm.
It's very much like
Hmm.
that. It's celebratory, because somebody
Hmm.
is back from the dark and into the
Yes.
light,
Yeah.
and now free to live a version of themselves that is going to really shine. And that's the work that we do. But
Yeah.
it parallels work that you do and that you encourage others to do. Move along,
Yes.
reach,
Yeah.
tell the story differently.
Depression is a kind of it's a kind of death. It's a kind of, when people are in it, it's like there's no way out. They need a little assistance. And being stuck in anything, afterlife or here life, or everything is afterlife in this world. There we it, what I mean by that is I see an image of me having breakfast this morning, but that's before life. I see an image in my head of me having dinner with Stephen tonight. That's afterlife, meaning this is life.
Yes.
And dinner tonight with Stephen, that's afterlife. And that's what it's always, ego's always offering up before life and after life. So we're stuck until we we by some grace have support from someone like you that obviously understands how to move on.
Doesn't mean I do it all the time. But
No, there's a great force at work, and
did you ever read C.S. Lewis's Screw Tape Letters?
no.
I just love it. Yeah, he wrote it right as World War II was beginning in England, before the United States entered it. But he was writing about the demonic, and in it, it's an allegory of one master demon teaching an apprentice demon how to ruin a human soul. And
Oh my.
it's very funny. It's wickedly funny.
I can imagine.
And I have a recording of John Cleese reading it, and
Oh my goodness.
I love it. I can quote long sections of it, but he talks about the fact that the angelic beings, including the unholy ones, have never been native to time, but they observed it and they know how it works on a human. And he says, get them to think about the past. It's frozen. It's still. It no longer moves. You get them fixed on things in the past, and they'll always be unhappy. We've had great success with widows in this regard, he says.
Yeah.
And then he goes to the future and says, if failing that, get them to think about the future, and it's the most unreal part of time because it's never existed.
Yeah.
And so anything that they think about it has unreality attached to it.
Yeah.
But
I'd say that
at all costs off the present moment.
yeah.
He said the present moment is the moment most like the enemy, which is the way he refers to God. He said the present moment is most like the enemy. It's lit up with those resplendent rays that cast their ghastly luminosity into the pit of hell.
Whoa.
Stay in the present moment, or don't let your human stay in the present moment, because it's godly, and we don't want that.
Yeah, spoken like a true ego.
Yes, and
as seen by the ego.
You can even use it to ruin human prayer. They'll try to control the future with their prayers. They'll say to God that they want this outcome about this thing in their life, but if they're at all experienced, they've had some prayers go unanswered, so that they'll always be ready for plan B, but you have to supply it. So get them to pray for outcome A. Get them to acknowledge that it might not happen, so they better be ready with B. And then, should the worst come to the worst, they will accept C as the worst coming to the worst. And you can get them spinning in their prayer so that they're so agitated that it exhausts them. You're finding it funny, so you might enjoy it if you don't have too much reading already. It's a short book and it's a classic. I
like to say, if you want a little fear and terror, get a future. Want a little shame and guilt, get a past. The only safe places here.
What's going on in your world? You have some speaking engagements coming up in Germany, I think, in the summer, right? And for whatever reason, your work really took off there, didn't it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little about what you're going to be doing.
Well, it's an event that I think they do it every year. It's called Grey Tour, and yeah, you can find it on my website, I think, and mostly, Father Ethan, I'm just all about I do on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday a 9 to 10 a.m. Pacific time event, and it's a community where everyone shows up. You don't have to pay to get in, and we're still surviving by whatever contributions that they, we have like a button $3, $5, $10, whatever it is, and then and it's as soon as COVID hit, I just and I had to cancel all my everything with hotels, and it was costly. Some of them wouldn't return our deposits, and which we weren't legally allowed to go forward with. So it was, as love would have it, I just immediately just dressed from the waist up, kept my pajama bottoms on, and just started just doing these at that time, just free with no opportunities for people to gift. but and that was 5 days a week. But it's a community that we sit together, we identify the cause of suffering, how to end it, and that's what we do.
And you do that Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday each week, right?
Uh-huh. From 9 to 10 a.m. Pacific time. And like today I went to 11:15. We never know. And it's I love it so much, and I can do it from home. So COVID taught me the way to for an 80-year-old woman to just stay home and continue my job here.
Yes.
Hmm. And I love it so much. Oh my goodness! Today, I call them teachers. A man came on that, and teachers are the ones that sit in inquiry, and in front of the entire community. We're just so tight. But he was his father wasn't his father lost his job. It's a year later. His father still doesn't have work. There are 5 siblings, a wife and that father. And then the son is Brian is we're doing the work. And he is in Catholic school. That's so funny. That happened this morning. And here I am sitting with you, and no mistake. And he's sitting and his father has just taken on his grandparents' business, and the business is way in the hole. So now his father has 8 people to support, 2 families taking on just a loop. So it's even worse. So he's sitting in school, and he is oh my goodness, he is in so much pain, and it was, God doesn't want me to have what I need.
Yes.
And that was the statement, what his mind was thinking, that he had written down. And we worked with that. It was so powerful. The entire community, we watched this man just was so stunning. Obviously, I love self-inquiry and the power of it. And I also know that, or it's my experience, that if he doesn't continue to sit in himself, to sit in this practice of self-awareness and goodness, as you describe your life to be when you were that young man, that young child, if he doesn't sit in the practice and that grace that he got a taste of, that you were born into, that the ego will just swallow it. It will swallow it.
Yes.
What he experienced is immovable. That's not ever going away. But now the ego's got to fill that space. And in my world, I was shown self-inquiry. I was shown the way out because I knew the way in. So I just reversed what happened to me on the floor. And that's how this work was born. But his work was stunning. And when we finally turned it around, well, how did he react when he believed the thought God didn't want him to have what he needed? The distance between him and God was just so great, and the depression, and he stood up every single day and with his prayer, and then all of them all the students would validate what he said in a prayerful response. And then he would sit down. So they were all holding him to get, to find peace with it, or to support him. As it's not my practice, I don't have a great understanding. So I'm sharing it with you as closely as I can. And so I just invited him to stay anchored in that situation when he sat down, and what it was like for him when he sat down. He was hopeless. He was hopelessly just I don't have to describe the experience to you or your, but as that little boy, we just said in those 4 questions and turnarounds, and it was stunning work. And I refer to people that raise their hand to sit in their work like that. I refer to them as our teachers because they show us how to sit in self-inquiry, and that nothing's impossible, and that center, that immovable heart, that symbol of what you're so anchored in, is equal in all of us without exception, and to
It,
find our way into that and how to maintain it, how to stabilize there and walk in the world and live in the world, and all of it. Just, I think we're all saints just waiting to happen. There's no one that holds more wisdom than another, is what I've come
Amen.
to understand.
Sure, sure. It reminds me near the end of the Oz story, even after the wizard has been shown to be a fraud, he's still someone lovable. He's just gotten, he just embraced a fraudulent identity.
Yeah,
He's
there it
not,
is.
he's not evil. He's just a misguided person. And he even says so, but then uh, he offers to take her home in a balloon he doesn't know how to drive. And
That's so like that guy.
yeah, and
Yeah.
Toto's the hero for me. It's the reason that Toto means everything, and I believe Toto is the face of God, the canine face of God in the story. And when the canine face of God jumps out to chase a cat, Dorothy follows him out and is not taken away in that silly balloon ride. But then
Yeah.
she thinks she's crying now and thinks I'll never get home. She's telling herself that story, or
Yeah.
her ego is, oh, now I'll never get home. Now I'll never get home. And then somebody points up and says, look, here she comes. And it was Glenda floating in on a bubble. And Dorothy is going, can you help me? Will you help me? Because she's still grasping outside of herself, even that late in the film. And Glenda just has to say, you don't need to be helped any longer. You could have gone home anytime you pleased.
Yeah.
And one says, well, I should have felt it in my heart. I should have thought it. No, she had to learn it for herself. And
Yeah.
then I think it's the Scarecrow who is my father. This is his voice. What did you learn? That was the way I was disciplined.
Yeah.
What did you learn? And maybe after a punishment, but still, the question that followed the punishment was, what did you learn? And then she's left with that question, and she says, well, at first, I wanted to go home just because I wanted to be with Uncle Henry and Auntie Em again. But you know, there's more to it than that. I think it's that if I ever go looking for my heart's desire, I won't look any further than my own backyard, because if it isn't there, I never really lost it to begin with. Is that it? That's it? Well, I should have thought it. I should have felt it in my nose. She had to for herself. Now she can go home anytime she wants. So, and then she lands home in just a minute. She's good. She's all home.
Yeah.
Well, we're nearly to the end of our hour. Do you have something you want to say that you haven't said?
Oh, that there is a way out of suffering, and it's other than what we're thinking and believing, life is truly something beautiful, and so are we.
Amen. And it sounds like it would be very easy for people to join you in one of these little morning sessions that you were just describing, right?
It is. There's a link on our website, and it's byronkatie.com or thework.com. They both take you there, and there's registration there. And if people aren't available during the time I'm working, you can still enroll, and we send it to you after the event. And so they'd be receiving it after the event within an hour or so, and then can watch it when they get home. Or
There also, I was on your website earlier today, and there's just a lot of free material, worksheets, and
everything,
simple
anything of
instructions.
value I've got has it's free, and yeah, the worksheets are there, and how to do the works there. We have a free helpline. If you want a facilitator, you can go there, and someone will work with you and they don't promote or sell, or they're just there to support you to get, like your sea legs and self-inquiry and those 4 questions, and
Okay.
just kind of just kind of, just for example, is it true that blank doesn't care about you? And yes, it's true. Dun, 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 dun. He told me so. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, now that's not self-inquiry. It's like, come on back. Just be there now in that situation. He doesn't care about you. Is it true? So these facilitators anchor you in that situation where he says, I don't care about you, or he said something that hurt your feelings, or whatever it is. They'll also support you as you fill in a judge your neighbor worksheet, answer those 6 questions, and until you can sit in that boat without a director, without support.
Mm-hmm. Good. Well, this has been great fun. I'm so grateful that you said yes to our crazy idea that you might want to be on our podcast.
Oh my goodness. Well,
Just thrilled with having you.
you're working with saints, and it's my privilege. Those people, my goodness, they know what heaven is, and you're bringing them home, which is also heaven.
Yeah,
I'm
amen.
very grateful for that.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, God bless you, and God bless all the people that you're trying to help.
Oh, thank you,
All
Father
right.
Nathan.
Enjoy the
Thank
rest of your
you.
day.
Bye-bye.
Well, this has been a great time together. If you would like to be in touch with me, that's easy to do. Just go to my website, which is nathan-castle.com. Maybe there's something that we can do together. In the meanwhile, I wish God's blessings upon
Oh,
you
thank you.
and all those you love, and
Oh,
any that you don't yet, that,
yeah.
that you might yet. All right.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for being with us. Bye-bye. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Joyful Friar. Please like, follow, and subscribe. You can visit me at nathan-castle.com. Send me a message by clicking the contact button. God bless.